Hello everyone, this is Sayi. In today's video, I will be doing a new case for my iPad. The model I have of iPad is a 10.5 inches iPad Pro. It's the 2017 version, so it's pretty old. A case for this model is no longer easily available. At least I couldn't find any in my city, and I could have probably gotten one from AliExpress or something like that, but I just preferred to do a DIY project out of it, starting from my old case. So today we are going to be doing a lot of stuff, not just creating a new case, but also trying out the Ohuhu acrylic markers I got some time ago, and also drawing Haikyuu. Let's get started. I had this very old fabric that it just happened to be the exact same fabric the old case was made of. It was storaged for a long time, so some parts were damaged, but it was still usable. I also wanted to use cardboard as the structure, and I also wanted to keep this device it had to turn the tablet around. So I just started from getting rid of all the unwanted elements, like the old fabric. This was by no means an original case for my iPad, so separating the parts was quite easy. I did a cut to split the case in half. As you can see inside the case, there's also a piece of cardboard, so it was a good call wanting to use one for the structure of the case. Not gonna lie, it looked disturbing. I also separated the piece of fabric that came close to the device, but I left a bit so I could glue on a new piece. I used the piece that I just took off as base for the measuring for the new piece. I made the line straight with a ruler. It's really difficult to cut through this very thick cardboard. I also copied the semicircle and cut it through. And I used the other parts of the case for measurement purposes. The old case had some sort of grids so the iPad could stand on itself, so I cut a few strips of the cardboard to do the same on the new case, just this time making it more efficient because the old one didn't really fulfill the purpose of the grid. By now my hand was hurting pretty badly because of all of the cuttings that I had to do on that hard and thick cardboard. So stretching. The lid was looking quite alright, although very thick, and the stand worked fine in both positions. The fabric was storaged for so long that it had a permanent wrinkle where the fabric was folded. Fortunately enough, once it was glued to the cardboard, the wrinkle was not visible anymore. The first problem arose when I wanted to glue the fabric to the cardboard using this kind of strong glue. The glue destroyed the fabric. It kind of got wet and ripped off. I was very upset. So I cut off a new piece of fabric and tried to glue it with hot glue this time around. I was scared that the hot glue would also rip off the fabric. Fortunately enough, it didn't happen. I just had to be very careful to not put a thick layer of glue and smear it down before gluing the fabric. And I just went gluing little by little, making sure that there were no wrinkles and that the glue didn't damage the fabric. So far so good, although the case had a few problems that I had to fix, especially on the seams. Very untidy. I used this other fabric to paste on the inside of the case. This is how it looked after gluing the new fabric, but I wanted to clean up the edges of the case and the seams, and I thought a good idea was to use foam clay to create some sort of frame around the case. Of course, it didn't work out. At this point, I didn't know there was this thing called Worbla thermoplastic. I found out about it on a YouTube channel of this very nice lady that repaints dolls, and she uses the the Worbla to do basically anything, I think that would have been a great solution for the frame and the seams of this project. But at the time I didn't have anything like it, so I just used the same fabric to create a more tidy frame for the case. Finally, before painting, I applied 2 to 3 coats of gesso. So, the Ohuhu acrylic markers. I already did the unboxing of this product when I tried out the Ohuhu alcohol markers for the first time, but I hadn't filled in the swatch sheets just yet. For some reason, the markers didn't come in the same order inside the pouch that came in the swatch sheets, so I just took off all of the markers and reorganized them in the order that came in the swatch sheet. To make the markers work, you have to pump them first. I did it on the little sketchbook that I used to create the thumbnail for the drawing that I was going to make on the case. I am not about to show you all of the swatches one by one because I dread on doing that, but the colors looked very cute, especially on the black sheet. This set is one of 30 colors, which includes also metallic markers and a few neon colors. I thought all of the colors were beautiful. They were not extremely saturated as the alcohol markers of the same brand, so the colors appealed to my tastes just perfectly. The sketch I made turned out like this. Now that I look at it, it looks quite ugly, but it was fine since these markers are acrylic. They are extremely opaque, so I could fix anything that I needed easily. As per usual, I wanted to make the shadows cool using purple and blue. These markers have two kinds of nibs, a broad one and the fine one. I had no problems working with either of the two nibs. Even the broad nib was easy to work with for me. It was very easy to fill in larger surfaces, but it was not difficult to use it to create smaller details as well. Of course, not as exact as the fine nib, but it was still not messy at all, as you could expect from such a broad nib. The markers were also very juicy. You can see how shiny the surface looks. Well, that's because of how much paint came out of the markers, which was great because they gave you a lot of working time, which helps you to mix colors very easily. I had already received these markers when I watched the Jasa video of him trying them out for the first time. I hadn't tried them out just yet, and he was saying that these markers didn't come in skin colors, so I was biased by that opinion. So when I had to fill in the skin color, I just didn't question anything, and I decided on using acrylic gouache to fill in the skin of the two characters, which was something that I regretted later on, but by now the skin color looks really cute. I thought Hinata's eyes were too small, so I enlarged them a bit, and of course the acrylic markers didn't have any problems covering the black inks of the line art. For line art, I also used the fine liners Ohuhu sent me, and unfortunately they didn't work as well on this kind of surface. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't, so when they decided to work, I used them, and if they didn't work, I would use something else. For his blushes, I also used the acrylic gouache and just blended and blended. For some line art, I also used the acrylic markers using the fine nib. As you can see, I had no problems using the marker to do line art on this size. I was still not sure if it would be easy or not to do line art on smaller drawings, but we'll see that later. I wanted to use red for line art, but I also wanted to give a bit of intensity in some parts with a darker color. Purple was perfect as for the color palette that I was using, but the purple that came in the set was not as dark, at least not the regular one. But to my surprise, the metallic purple was darker and it looked amazing. I personally love metallic colors. I don't know if you would decide on doing line art or using them as regular markers to color, but for me there was no problem. I used the metallic markers because they were more dark than the regular ones, and I loved the results. I used the metallic markers also to color the dark blue in Kageyama's eyes, and I loved it. Here I also used the acrylic gouache to paint Kageyama's skin. The white was, as expected, very opaque. I mixed a few colors of acrylic gouache to create the color for their uniform, but it ended still looking too saturated and I hated it. So now comes the interesting part. I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but since the acrylic markers had so much ink coming out of them, I thought that maybe it was not as difficult to mix them together. So for the skin colors of the chibis that I made of Hinata and Kageyama, I first applied a coat of white marker. Then I applied a bit of the orange marker on top and mixed everything together with the same nib of the white marker. I also applied the markers in a small portion of the surface and smeared it with a brush. This was also a possibility that you could blend colors or apply colors, smear colors using paint brushes. That was awesome. I think it's great because you can save on the markers, especially the darker ones, because they are so pigmented that you just apply a bit of the marker and then smear everything with a paintbrush. I am positive that I can create any skin color that I want with just the colors that come in the set, even a dark skin color. So I don't think you'd need any more colors than the ones that come in the set. Same thing I did on top of the ugly blue that I created with acrylic gouache. I mixed black with the blue that came in the set and mixed them together with a paintbrush, and I covered everything that way. The color turned out looking a lot less saturated, which is more appealing to my likings, so it was perfect. I did the highlights on Kageyama's hair with the same metallic color that I did the darker blue on his eyes. I also fixed the nose with the same technique that I told you, combining two markers together and blending with a paintbrush. Another thing that surprised me greatly were the neon colors. I thought for sure that I was not even gonna touch those colors, but thanks to the swatches that I made, I noticed that this yellow neon color was like a very cute baby yellow. So I used it to fill in the background, and it was so cute. Here I used the markers to make line art on the small chibi, and it was no problem. Since sometimes the fine liners didn't work on the surface of the case, I mixed on a piece of aluminum foil 3 colors together, black, red, and brown, to create a darker color to do line art with a paintbrush. Also a technique you can use, no problem. Again, the cute baby yellow neon color for highlights. I wrote Haikyuu to fill in the extra space. I also added extra details like sparkles. Karasuno wrote on the gold metallic marker, and also a surprise on the inside. And this is it, the final result. And ta-da! The small Karasuno team. We have Sugawara, Sawamura, Asumane, Tsukishima, and Yamaguchi, dear Nishinoya, Tanaka, and of course our beloved Hinata and Kageyama. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you didn't notice, I loved working with these acrylic markers. They are so good, I totally recommend them. It was fun, it was easy, and the colors were so cute, and the nibs were very good quality. Thank you to Ahuhu to have sent me this amazing gift. I really appreciate it. If you liked this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye!